The stale scent of leftover meatloaf and lemon-scented polish hung in the air of our suburban Michigan home, a familiar perfume I'd associated with tension for the past 2 years. That night, the tension was a live wire, buzzing just beneath the surface of a seemingly normal Tuesday. My father, a man whose shoulders seemed to carry the weight of every silent meal, was on a business trip in Cleveland. And my stepmother, Linda, was getting ready for a girls' night out. I was 17, at that age where everything and everyone was a potential source of embarrassment or anger, and Linda, with her perfectly coordinated throw pillows and insistence on us being a blended family, was a prime target. From my spot on the living room couch, pretending to be absorbed in a textbook on American history, I watched her reflection in the dark TV screen. She was a whirlwind of sequins and perfume, buzzing between the hallway mirror and her bedroom. "You sure you'll be okay, Jake?" she called out, her voice a little too bright, a little too forced. "There's leftover lasagna in the fridge. Just microwave it for 3 minutes." "I know how to work a microwave, Linda," I said, not looking up from the Battle of Gettysburg. I made a point of using her first name, a small, petty rebellion I'd clung to since the day my dad married her. Mom had been gone for 5 years, but the space she left behind wasn't something a cheerful real estate agent with a penchant for floral prints could ever fill. "Of course you do," she said, appearing in the doorway. She wore a black top that shimmered under the hall light and jeans that looked brand new. Her blonde hair was styled in soft waves, a stark contrast to her usual messy bun. She looked happy, annoyingly so. "I left the number for the Italian place on the fridge, and my phone will be on. Just, in case." "In case what?" "I accidentally blend the family without your supervision." I muttered, the words out before I could stop them. A flicker of something, hurt, frustration, crossed her face, but it was gone in an instant, replaced by that polished, stepmotherly smile. "Just be safe, Jake. Don't answer the door for anyone. I should be home by 11. The door clicked shut behind her, and the house exhaled. The silence was immediate and profound, a heavy blanket of relief. For the first time all evening, my shoulders relaxed. It was just me and the empty, spotless house. I tossed my textbook aside and grabbed the TV remote, ready to claim the big screen for a night of video games and whatever junk food I could find. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural thump. It came from the garage. I froze, my thumb hovering over the power button. The house was old, it settled. It was probably just the water heater kicking on. I waited, listening to the frantic beat of my own heart. Silence. I shook my head. "Get a grip, Jake," I whispered to the empty room. I started my game, the explosive sounds of virtual warfare filling the living room. I was deep into a mission, my focus absolute, when I heard it again. Thump, then a scrape. This time, it was unmistakable. It wasn't the house settling. It was something solid. Something moving. A cold dread, sharp and immediate, trickled down my spine. My dad's tools. Maybe a stack of boxes had fallen over. But the sound had a weight to it, an intentionality that set my nerves on edge. Linda's parting words echoed in my head. "Don't answer the door for anyone." She hadn't said anything about the garage. Gripping my controller like a weapon, I muted the TV. The silence that rushed back in was now oppressive, threatening. I stood up, my legs feeling like jelly. Every horror movie I'd ever sneaked watching as a kid flashed through my mind. This was always the part where the dumb teenager goes to investigate the strange noise. But I wasn't a kid in a movie. I was a practically grown man in my own home. I had to check it out. I crept through the kitchen, my socks silent on the tile floor. The door to the garage was a solid slab of painted wood, the small window at its top dark. I pressed my ear against the cool surface. Nothing. I took a deep breath, my hand closing around the cold brass of the doorknob. With a silent count of 3, I turned it and pulled the door open a crack. The garage was pitch black. The automatic opener light was off. The faint glow from the kitchen light sliced into the darkness, illuminating a sliver of concrete floor in the front tire of my dad's SUV. "Hello," I called out, my voice cracking embarrassingly. "Is someone there?" No answer. Just the hum of the freezer in the corner. I fumbled for the light switch on the wall, my fingers brushing against the rough dry wall. I flipped it. The fluorescent bulbs overhead flickered to life with a harsh, buzzing glow, flooding the two-car space with light. And that's when I saw her. Curled into a tight ball between a stack of my dad's old law journals and a dusty treadmill, was a woman. She wasn't Linda. She was younger, maybe in her late 20s, with matted, dark hair and clothes that were dirty and torn at the knee. She was shivering violently, her arms wrapped around her legs, her face buried in her knees. My brain short-circuited. Every possible scenario, a raccoon, a fallen ladder, a faulty appliance, evaporated, replaced by a sheer, blinding panic. An intruder, a stranger, in my garage. Who are you? I shouted, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and a desperate attempt to sound authoritative. What are you doing in my house? The woman flinched at the sound of my voice but didn't look up. A low, ragged sob escaped her, muffled by her knees. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated misery. My initial fear began to morph into something else, something more complex. She wasn't threatening me. She wasn't brandishing a weapon or lunging at me. She looked broken, terrified. Please, she whispered, her voice hoarse and raw. Please, don't call the police. I stood there, frozen in the doorway, my mind racing. This was it. This was the moment I was supposed to be the hero, the responsible young adult. I should run to the kitchen, grab the phone, and dial 911. That's what my dad would want. That's what Linda would expect. But the sheer desperation in that single word, please, held me fast. I took a cautious step into the garage. The air was cold and smelled of gasoline and damp concrete. I'm not going to hurt you, I said, my voice softer now. But you need to tell me what you're doing here. How did you get in? She slowly, painfully, lifted her head. I sucked in a sharp breath. One of her eyes was swollen shut, a violent, ugly shade of purple and blue. A cut on her lip was crusted with dried blood. She looked at me with her one good eye, and the terror I saw there was so profound it felt like a physical blow. The side door, she stammered, her gaze darting towards the small pedestrian door that led to the backyard. It was unlocked. I'm so sorry. I needed a place to hide. Hide from who? I asked, though a sickening understanding was already dawning on me. The bruises, the fear, the desperate flight. Her name was Chloe, she told me in halting, fractured sentences. She lived a few streets over, in a house with a man named Mark. Her boyfriend. What started as charm had curdled into control, then criticism, then this. The beatings had been getting worse. Tonight, he'd flown into a rage over a cold dinner. He'd backhanded her, thrown a vase against the wall, and told her she was worthless. She'd run out the back door in her socks, with no phone, no wallet, nowhere to go. She'd seen our garage side door slightly ajar, a mistake my dad must have made before his trip, and she'd slipped inside, just wanting a dark, quiet corner to disappear into for a while. As she spoke, my world, which had previously revolved around school, friends, and my simmering resentment for Linda, tilted on its axis. This wasn't a story on the news. This was a real person, sitting on my dirty garage floor, her life shattered. My problems suddenly seemed incredibly, shamefully small. You're safe here, I heard myself say. The words felt foreign, but I meant them. Let's get you inside. It's cold out here. She flinched again. No, I can't, he'll find me. He checks my phone. He knows everyone. He doesn't know me, I said, with a conviction that surprised me. Come on, just to the kitchen. You can sit down. I'll get you some water. It took some coaxing, but she finally, shakily, got to her feet. She was unsteady, wincing as she put weight on her right leg. I didn't touch her, just guided her gently into the bright warmth of the kitchen. She looked utterly out of place amidst Linda's cheerful yellow walls and the cookie jar shaped like a smiling cat. I pulled out a chair for her at the oak table, and she sank into it, folding in on herself again. I filled a glass with cold water from the fridge dispenser and set it in front of her. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely hold it. I didn't know what to do. My first instinct was still to call the police. But the raw, animal fear in her eyes every time I glanced at the phone on the wall kept me from it. He has friends on the force, she'd whispered. They never believe me. So, I did the only other thing I could think of. I called Linda. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Hey, you've reached Linda. I'm probably having way too much fun. Leave a message. Her bubbly tone felt like a mockery of the situation in my kitchen. Linda, I said, my voice low and urgent after the beep. It's Jake. You need to come home. Now, there's a situation. A woman. She's hurt. She's in our kitchen. It's an emergency. Please, come home. I hung up, my own hands starting to shake. Chloe was just staring at the tabletop, tracing the wood grain with a trembling finger. I called Linda, I said. She'll know what to do. Chloe just nodded, a single tear escaping her good eye and tracing a clean path through the grime on her cheek. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat with Chloe in silence, my mind a whirlwind. I offered her the leftover lasagna, but she refused. I asked if she wanted to clean up her cut, and she just shook her head. She was in a state of shock, retreating deep inside herself. I just stayed there, a silent, awkward sentinel, until I finally heard the crunch of gravel in the driveway and the click of the front door. "Jake," Linda's voice called out, laced with annoyance. "What's going on?" I was in the middle of karaoke. This had better be. She walked into the kitchen, her sequin top glittering, her makeup flawless. She stopped dead when she saw Chloe. Her smile vanished, replaced by a look of stunned confusion that quickly sharpened into something else, a fierce, immediate comprehension. "Oh, my dear," she said, her voice dropping all its previous artifice. It was soft, warm, and full of a gravity I had never heard from her before. She didn't look at me for an explanation. She didn't hesitate. She walked straight over to the table and knelt down beside Chloe's chair, bringing herself to eye level. She didn't touch her. "Hi," Linda said, her voice as calm and steady as a rock in a storm. "My name is Linda. You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you here." Chloe lifted her head, and the look that passed between them was a silent conversation of its own. It was a look of shared, unspoken understanding. In that moment, the Linda I thought I knew, the woman obsessed with centerpieces and positive affirmations, completely disappeared. In her place was a stranger, a pillar of strength. She listened, never interrupting, as Chloe repeated her story in a broken whisper. Linda just nodded, her eyes never leaving Chloe's face, her expression one of unwavering empathy. When Chloe finished, Linda stood up. Her movements were decisive, purposeful. "Okay," she said. "First, we're going to take some pictures of your injuries. For evidence. It's okay, it will just be with my phone. Then, we are going to call a hotline I know. Not the police. Not yet. A place that helps women exactly in your situation. They have lawyers and safe houses." She looked at me for the first time since entering the room. "Jake, go get the first aid kit from the bathroom upstairs. And bring down one of my softest towels and a clean washcloth." I sprang into action, my earlier paralysis gone. For the first time, I was following her orders without a trace of resentment. Upstairs, I grabbed the plastic kit and a fluffy blue towel from the linen closet. When I returned, Linda had her phone out, taking careful, clinical photos of Chloe's face and the bruise that was now visible on her arm. "This is my stepson, Jake," Linda said to Chloe, her voice gentle again. "He's going to help me clean you up, okay? We worked together, Linda and I." She dampened the washcloth I brought with warm water and carefully, so carefully, began to clean the blood from Chloe's lip. I held the first aid kit open, handing Linda antiseptic wipes and a bandage when she needed them. We were a team, a silent, efficient, unexpected team. Linda made the call to the domestic violence hotline. She spoke in low, professional tones, relaying information, asking questions. She arranged for a volunteer to meet us at a designated safe location, a 24-hour pharmacy parking lot a town over. "We're going to take you to some people who can help you," Linda explained to Chloe. "They'll get you a safe place to sleep tonight, and tomorrow, they can help you figure out what you want to do next. It's your choice. Always your choice." We helped Chloe into the back seat of Linda's car. I climbed into the passenger seat, and Linda drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. The glitter from her top seemed absurd now, a relic from a different, simpler universe. We met a kind-faced woman named Sarah in the brightly lit parking lot. The transfer was quiet, efficient. Sarah thanked us, her eyes conveying a gratitude that words couldn't. As she led Chloe towards a waiting sedan, Chloe turned back and looked at us. She didn't smile, but the sheer, paralyzing terror in her eyes had been replaced by a fragile, nascent hope. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me." Then she was gone. The drive home was shrouded in a heavy, reflective silence. The adrenaline had drained from my body, leaving me hollow and exhausted. Linda didn't turn on the radio. She just drove, one hand on the wheel, the other pressed to her forehead. We pulled back into our garage, the space now feeling strangely sacred. The house was silent once more. Linda walked into the kitchen and slumped into the same chair Chloe had occupied. She let out a long, shaky breath, and for the first time that night, I saw the mask of strength completely fall away. She looked tired, deeply, profoundly tired. I stood awkwardly by the doorway. "Linda," I didn't know what to say. "Thank you," felt inadequate. "I'm sorry," felt misplaced. She looked up at me, her eyes glistening. You did good tonight, Jake, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You were brave, and you were kind. That's what matters. I nodded, swallowing hard. I didn't know what to do. You did. A sad, knowing smile touched her lips. A long time ago, before I met your dad, I was in a relationship that wasn't healthy, she said quietly, looking down at her hands. It wasn't as bad as what that poor girl is going through, but it was scary. I remember what it feels like to have nowhere to go. To feel invisible. The revelation hit me with the force of a physical blow. All the pieces clicked into place. Her immediate understanding, her calm expertise, her fierce protectiveness. The perfect, polished stepmother had a crack in her facade, and through it, I was seeing a real, complicated, and incredibly strong person for the very first time. Her obsession with creating a safe, beautiful home wasn't about appearances, it was a testament, a bulwark against the chaos she had once known. I didn't know that, I said softly. There's a lot you don't know about me, Jake, she replied, not with accusation, but with a simple, heartbreaking honesty. And that's okay. But tonight you saw me. My throat tightened. The last vestiges of my teenage resentment crumbled to dust. In its place was a swelling feeling of respect, and something else, something that felt a lot like family. Yeah, I said, my voice rough. I guess I did. I walked over to the table and sat down across from her. We didn't speak for a long time. We just sat together in the quiet kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of the ordinary night that had shattered and remade us both. The sequins on her top still sparkled under the light, but they no longer looked frivolous. They looked like armor. When my stepmother went out for a girls' night, I never expected what followed. I never expected to find a broken stranger in our garage. I never expected to see a hidden strength in the woman I'd dismissed for 2 years. And I never, ever expected that the silent, tense house I couldn't wait to escape would, by the end of one terrifying night, finally begin to feel like a home.